Hi there, creative friends, and welcome back to another video of Digital Art 101. Are you struggling to find a digital drawing glove that fits your hands perfectly? Whether you're like me and have tiny little hands or larger hands that just don't fit those generic sizes, I've got you covered, literally. I'm going to show you how to sew your own custom glove, digital glove, like these ones. The gloves can be made for left-handed people or right-handed people as you like. It is easy, affordable, and fun to make. And hey, if you've ever wondered why digital artists wear these funny looking gloves, stick around, they'll explain that too. So why do we need these gloves? When you're drawing on a digital tablet, your hand, this part here, can accidentally trigger touch inputs, messing up your work. These gloves help prevent that by ensuring that only your pen is detected and only your pen is essentially drawing. When you start drawing on a digital tablet, you can change the settings. You can set up how you want your pencil to be interpreted. If you want to be able to draw or not with your finger as well. So as you can see, my finger currently does not do anything. It can't draw, so I can only draw with my pencil. That's the setting that I have set up. But still, touchscreen can detect when you're using your fingers. For example, if I use 2 fingers and I tap, it's going to remove what I just did. If I use 3 fingers, it's going to redo what you just drawn. And again, why do we need the glove if we have that setting? The problem is when you're drawing and you have your hand on the screen, it is being detected by the system and it might be doing things that you're not intending to do. It might erase accidentally what you've just been drawing. So, oh, did you just see that? How it zoomed in? That's the main reason why I use mine. Another thing is as well, you don't smudge your screen because the oils on your hands are not touching the screen. You don't have to clean it as much. That's why these little things are really handy, and they're quite inexpensive. You can buy them on Amazon or many other places. And this one's really nice, light and easy. I mean, there's not much to them, but here's the thing. I personally don't like having this finger covered, because I do use my 3 fingers like this instead of these 3. For me, having this finger is very bothersome. So what I typically end up doing is I sort of squish it here behind this one, and this is how I end up drawing. So I only have that 1 finger and essentially the back of my hand covering. But you can also see this is quite large on me. I have very small hands and it's just not ideal. So I thought, why not make one that, doesn't have this finger, looks nicer in terms of color, and making your own means just a perfect fit. All right, let's start with the materials that you will need. And don't worry, I will be talking about some alternatives if you don't have exactly the same thing. What you're gonna need first is something like this. This is a jersey knit fabric. But what you want to make sure is that it has a stretch, at least one directional. It doesn't have to be stretched in 2 directional like this one that stretches this way, but also this way. So it has 2-way stretch. You can use it in any color you want with any design that you like. I have some spare from an old project. If you don't have that, don't worry. You can use something like an old t-shirt. Also, some people use winter gloves and socks, but just be careful that when you cut that it doesn't unravel. You will need something to trace. You can either use a pencil or something like this, which is a pen that disappears after you've used it on the fabric. There's also chalks for sewing, so anything that you prefer or have at hand. You would also need some kind of scissors. This is a great one for trimming the thread when you're sewing, and this one is great for cutting your fabric. I used a sewing machine for this project. This is the machine I used to sew the gloves. It's an okay machine. If you have the opportunity to get a much more complex one, I would recommend that, but it has all the things that you need. So here's the straight stitch and the zigzag stitch, or this one as well. You can also do hand stitching with regular needles and some regular thread like this one. I like the brand Gutaman. It's really good quality thread, but if you don't have that, just a regular one will do. And I highly recommend that you match the colors of your thread to your fabric. I highly recommend it because in my first attempt I tried an accent color and it just showed absolutely every single mistake. And finally, you will need either some pins so that you make sure that your fabric doesn't shift on you, or little clips like these ones. They both do the same trick. For this kind of fabric, I recommend these kinds of pins though. It secures them a little bit better. Step 1. Trace your hand. Let's get started with tracing our hand. You've got two options here. You can either fold the fabric and cut out your hand shape once, or leave the fabric flat and cut out your hand shape twice. Folding the fabric means you'll only have one seam on one side, which means there's no seam between your hand and the screen. But it can be a little bit trickier to cut as the fabric might shift. If you choose the folded method, using some pins to keep the fabric in place will really help. First, lay your fabric on the table with the stretchy direction going horizontally. Place your hand on the fabric with your fingers spread as wide as you can. Now trace around your hand, adding a little bit of a seam allowance. You can either trace the whole hand and cut off any fingers that you don't want in the glove later. Let's call this option full glove, or trace around the fingers you want to be covered. Let's call this option a few fingers glove. I've tried both methods, and tracing all fingers first and then cutting off the unwanted ones made the sewing part easier. For the seam allowance, I'd suggest at least 1 centimeter. It's easier to trim off any extra fabric later. If you don't have enough seam allowance, your glove might unravel or might be too tight. Fold the fabric to be sewn with pins or clips. You want the right side, or the pretty side so to say, of the fabric to be facing each other. This is only important if you have a fabric with a design. For example, on my fabric, it doesn't matter because both sides are the exact same. Step 2. Cutting. Now cut out your traced hand, either the full glove or few finger glove. Step 3. Sewing the glove. Now let's sew. Once you're here, you can consider sewing the seam allowance at the bottom of the glove, but this is completely optional and up to your preference. If you're using a machine for this part, you can use the zigzag stitch, which is intended for stretchy fabric. But for this project, it is not absolutely necessary. I made more than one glove, and my second glove turned out just fine with straight stitch. This is my first glove with the zigzag, and this is my second glove with straight stitch. It doesn't stretch as much. For the full glove option, you can start on either side. It doesn't really matter. And you will go from one side all the way to the other side. You might want to reverse sewing at the beginning or end of the fingers where you know you'll be cutting. For the few fingers option, I suggest you start sewing the finger as it is the trickiest part. Also super important, add a pin or an indicator where the finger stops so you don't sew the glove opening shut, like I did. Then sew the opposite side. If you're hand sewing, small and tight stitches work best. The next step is optional. You can add some personal touches if you might want to make your glove unique and add maybe a personalized logo or something unique to you. You see me here adding a little leather tag with my logo. It's optional, but it makes your glove unique and special. If you do cross stitching or embroidery, you could also consider adding some cute little detail to your glove. The only thing I would say is just don't add anything bulky or inflexible, as it might disturb your drawing process or even scratch your screen. Some troubleshooting and additional tips. Whoops, looks like this one turned out a little too small. No worries, that's why we have extra fabric. I ended up having to make 3 attempts before getting the right size as I wanted it. It might take you also a few tries to get it perfectly right. And if you're using similar fabric to me and your machine is struggling to feed it through at the very beginning, you can try putting a piece of tracing paper at the beginning stitches, and then later you can just rip it off. This allows for the machine to actually be able to pull it without breaking your fabric or without the fabric bunching up. All that's left to do is to turn the glove inside out, and you should be able now to try it on, see if it fits perfectly. And voila, you should now have at least one, if not multiple little gloves. Let's now try them on the screen to see if it no longer detects our hand. Perfect. And as I said, don't worry if it didn't work out the first time. I also needed to do a few attempts before it was the perfect fit. If If you're up for another sewing project that is easy and fun to do, don't miss out on my tutorial how to make a sunglasses case in 5 easy steps. And if you're just starting your digital art journey, make sure to check out the Digital Art 101 playlist. It's packed with tips to get you started and boost your creativity. If you found this tutorial helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more creative tips and tricks. Comment as well any questions that you may have or any suggestions on future videos that you'd like to see me do. And all that's left to say is happy creating! Bye!